Imagine being a king, the crown, the castles, the divine authority, and then dying because you ran headfirst into a doorway while chasing a girl on horseback. Welcome to History Facts Uncovered, the show where powerful rulers don't die in glorious battles. They die like background characters in a bargain bin comedy. Tonight, we're diving into the most embarrassing, brain cell obliterating royal deaths in history. The ones so dumb your ancestors would pretend they don't know you. We've got a king who got dragged 16 miles by a deer like a rag doll tied to a pickup truck. A king assassinated while pooping. Another who literally burned to death because his maid couldn't find scissors. These aren't royal tragedies, they're cosmic jokes with crowns on. All right, saddle up, tighten your helmet, and prepare for a tour of deaths so stupid you'll question how these people ever ruled anything. Louis III, the king who died chasing a girl. Recognize. All right, let's kick this royal clown show off with 16-year-old king, whose life was basically a group project he did not want, and whose death was, well, peak stupidity. So Louis becomes king at an age when most modern teenagers are still learning how to talk to people without sweating. His parents married in secret, so half the nobles weren't even sure he should have the crown. But to keep the drama to a minimum, and because medieval politics is basically season 6 of a messy reality show, Louis agrees to split the kingdom with his little brother. North for Louis, south for Carloman. Roofing, like two kids dividing a bedroom. Stabilize. You get the bed, I get the Xbox. Together, they fight off Viking invasions, score a huge victory, and suddenly everyone's like, what, these teen kings are killing it? It literally, 9,000 Vikings shredded. Not bad for boys who probably still sounded like they were mid-puberty. And with that ego boost, Louis decides it's time to find a queen. But instead of, talking to a woman, Louis goes with the ancient royal courting ritual known as chase her on horseback until she says yes. A young woman sees the king coming and bolts for her father's house. Louis, bless his hormone-fried royal brain, sprints after her at full speed. And then, history gives us one of the dumbest deaths ever recorded. Through the village, Louis slams his royal skull directly into a low doorway. Full speed. Buffalo. No helmet. Game over. Imagine the king of a whole kingdom dying like a Looney Tunes character running into a wooden beam. Congratulations, Louis. You defeated 9,000 Vikings, but your final boss was architecture. To make things even more pathetic, he didn't leave behind an heir. So his brother Carloman had to rule alone. And then he died 2 years later when his servant accidentally stabbed him on a hunting trip. His most fragile monarchs. Basil I, the emperor who got dragged by a deer for 16 miles. Hold. Next up, Basil I of Byzantium, the ultimate rags to riches to roadkill story. Confessed, born dirt poor, captured by Bulgarians as a toddler, escaped after 23 years, like it was a Prison Break episode. This man literally speed ran life. He arrives in Constantinople with nothing but charm, muscles, and main character energy, and somehow climbs the entire social ladder like it's a glitch in the game. Servant, cougar magnet, bodyguard, adopted son, co-emperor. The medieval definition of, if you can fake confidence long enough, they'll eventually give you the job. And when his adoptive emperor dad gets a little too suspicious, Gelters solves the problem the old-fashioned way, with a sword. Boom! Brighton, instant promotion. Basil becomes full emperor, no DLC required. And to be fair, he's actually good at the job, like really good. He launches the Macedonian dynasty, revives the empire, fixes the laws, wins battles. History actually respects this guy. But then, fate says, "You've climbed too high, babe. Time to humble you." During a casual imperial hunting trip, which by the way has the highest kill streak against kings in history, Fireplace somehow manages to get his belt caught in a deer's antlers. Yes, deadliest. The Emperor of the Byzantine Empire gets hooked like a coat on a hanger. The deer panics, as deer tend to do, and takes off sprinting. And Basil, ruler of millions, is dragged across the countryside for 16 miles. 16 miles. The deer basically turned him into a medieval mop. By the time his servant catches up and cuts him loose, Basil is still alive. Somehow. Medieval plot armor, I guess. But the wounds get infected, because of course, and Basil dies shortly after. And here's the kicker. The servant who cut him free? Accused of attempted murder and sentenced to death. Bluff Bro saved the Emperor from being dragged into a different time zone and still got fired. Permanently. Basil I, the mighty founder of a golden age, exited history. Not by sword, not by poison, but by an angry deer with cardio. Edmund Ironside, the king assassinated while pooping. All right, buckle in, because if you thought dying from deer dragging was bad, wait until we get to Edmund Ironside, the man who fought Vikings with the strength of 10 men, and then died because someone stabbed him through a toilet. Yes, through a toilet. Edmund becomes King of England in 1016, which was a terrible year to put king on your resume because the Danes, aka Vikings with bigger egos and better boats, were everywhere. But Edmund? He fights like he's trying to unlock a secret achievement. He wins battle after battle, earning the nickname Ironside because he was basically unkillable. Brightness. Until he wasn't. After a brutal final defeat, he strikes a treaty with the Danish king, Canute. The deal? Edmund keeps ruling the southern half of England, and Canute gets the north. Cool, reasonable, stable. Except for one tiny little clause that was basically a murder invitation. Whichever king dies first, the other gets the whole country. Ah yes, Knights encourages peace like, may the best man not die on the toilet. And oh boy, Destiny took that personally. 1 month later, Edmund sits down on his royal porcelain throne, or more accurately, the medieval wooden hole that wished it was a toilet. He's enjoying some peace and quiet, probably thinking about taxes or soup or whatever kings thought about. Meanwhile, an assassin is hiding beneath the toilet like a medieval ninja turtle. The moment is perfect. Edmund leans forward and whoosh! Yes, that is the historical record. Yes, this is a real thing that happened. Pennsylvania, yes, someone literally said, hey, what if we kill the king from below? Ironside dies on the spot, proving that even the strongest warrior has one critical weakness: gravity. And Canute? Oh, he tragically mourned for about half a second before claiming the entire kingdom like, well, rules are rules. It's one of the most humiliating royal deaths ever recorded. This king didn't fall in battle, or to poison, or to politics. he fell to the world's deadliest toilet ambush. Henry I. Death by Lampreys, aka Nightmare Noodles from Hell. Afflict. The first of England, a surprisingly competent king who fixed his brother's messes, stabilized the country, reformed the system, and then died because he couldn't stop eating lampreys. Broncos, yes, lampreys. Those wriggly, eel-looking vacuum cleaner-mouthed demons that look like they crawled straight out of a boss fight. Let's rewind. Henry wasn't supposed to be king. He was the fourth son, basically the medieval equivalent of, don't worry about him, he'll never inherit anything. But then his older brother William II goes on a hunting trip and catches an arrow with his lungs. Wait, is it an accident? Was it Henry's ambition? Was it the forest saying, get out? History shrugs. Anyway, Henry speedruns to the treasury, steals the crown before anyone can blink, and boom, King Henry I. And to his credit, the man did a good job. He reformed the laws, stabilized the kingdom, expanded power, and actually acted like an adult in a century where most rulers behaved like drunk toddlers with swords. While tragedy strikes, his only legitimate son, William, dies in the White Ship disaster. Basically the Titanic, but with more nobles, more wine, and zero survivors anyone cared about. Henry is devastated. Brightness. And when medieval men are sad, they don't go to therapy, they go hunting. And they binge eat weird animals. Enter the villain of this chapter, lampreys, the edible equivalent of a bad decision. Henry loved them. Like, his personal physician begged him, "Your Majesty, please stop eating these abominations." Premature. Henry said, "No." So after a glorious binge meal of sea vampires lightly sautéed, Henry gets what every person who eats cursed Pokemon should expect: massive food poisoning. Norwich a week later, at age 66, defeated not by armies, not by assassins, not by betrayal. Medieval sushi that definitely violated several health codes. His death also ends the Norman dynasty, triggers a civil war, and plunges England into chaos. All because Henry couldn't stop eating something that looks like a worm with a suction cup for a face. If there's a lesson here, it's this. Sometimes the deadliest enemy of a king is the menu. Charles II of Navarre, the king who got cooked because his maid couldn't find scissors. Seb, lamb. Now let's talk about Charles II of Navarre, also known as Charles the Bad, which, honestly, is one of history's few nicknames that's 100% accurate. This man wasn't just bad like a shady politician. He was bad like manipulator, clang, backstabber, serial double-crosser, the kind of guy who'd betray both sides of a war and then forge your signature on the peace treaty. He spent decades flipping alliances between France and England like he was playing medieval Uno, and somehow everybody hated him. Penates? Hated him. Hated him. Brightness? Still hate him. He even faked his own kidnapping once, and everyone still hoped the kidnappers kept him. Brightness. But karma has a long memory. Huntington, and it waits for the funniest moment possible. Blackjack. The final saga. Charles versus basic fire safety. Final years, Charles was weak, bedridden, and basically running on spite alone. His doctor prescribes a weird medieval treatment, correcting. Wrap the king's entire body in cloth soaked with alcohol. Because nothing says healing like turning the monarch into a human Molotov cocktail. Every night, the maids sew the linen wraps tightly around him. Easy job, simple job, a safe job. Until one night, one maid can't find scissors to cut the final thread. No problem, right? She could look harder, ask someone, corrections, bite the thread, use literally anything else. The dumbest option in the history of medical decisions. She takes a candle, corner back, and burns the thread off. Instantly, whoosh, the alcohol-soaked linen ignites like it's been waiting all week for this moment. Fiberglass. Charles the Bad goes up in flames like a discount Roman candle. Blinds. The maid panics, drops the candle, and runs out of the room like this is someone else's problem. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a king who spent his whole life scheming, manipulating, and dodging assassinations dies because his maid used fire instead of scissors. The man who tried to rewrite European politics ended up getting roasted alive by basic incompetence. If karma were a chef, Charles was dinner. Henry II of France, the king who got a lance through the eye because he wanted to look cool. And now, let's talk about Henry II of France, a king who had one job during a national celebration. Do not die. He failed. So here's the context. Federally, France just ended the Italian Wars. His daughter just married the King of Spain, and everyone is celebrating. Peace, prosperity, weddings. Perfect time for a festival, fireworks, and absolutely no reason for the king to risk his life. But Henry? Henry wakes up and chooses main character syndrome to host a massive jousting tournament. And then, because God loves drama, he decides to participate himself. Blindness. You are the king, let alone medieval extreme sports. But no, he's hyped. He's confident. He's in the armor. He's ready to stick his wooden stick into other dudes' wooden sticks for honor and glory. Flooded across the field stands his opponent, Gabriel Montgomery, captain of the King's Guard. A man whose entire job is protect the king. So of course, Henry's brilliant plan is, let me charge at this man full speed with a giant spear. The moment everything goes wrong, they gallop, they lower their lances, they clash. Montgomery's lance hits Henry's helmet perfectly, shatters into splinters, which would be fine if one of those splinters didn't fly directly into the king's eye. Yes, a wooden shard pierces Henry's face like a medieval home renovation accident. The king collapses. Everyone panics. The surgeons rush in. And the surgeons? Oh, they're useless. Pedestrian's Hebrew doctors were basically dudes in hats with knives and confidence. Can you remove the wood? No. Can you treat the wound? Not really. Do you know what you're doing? Absolutely not. So Henry lies there for days, eye destroyed, brain swelling, infection spreading like it's racing the tournament clock. Satisfaction. And King Henry II dies. Not in war, not in rebellion, not in a political crisis. Blazers, but because he wanted to cosplay as a knight one last time. History lesson. If you're a king, maybe don't let your hobbies kill you. When kings die like clowns. And that, my friends, is your royal reminder that you can build empires, command armies, bathe in gold, and still Dominican die like an absolute idiot. Louis III defeated Vikings, blinded to a low doorway. Basil I built a golden age and got dragged across the countryside by a confused deer. Edmund Ironside earned his name in battle and lost everything to the deadliest toilet in Europe. Henry I ruled with intelligence and strategy, but couldn't resist the seductive power of cursed seafood. Charles the Bad manipulated a continent, blockchain, and got deep fried by a maid with 0 scissors and 0 brain cells. And Henry II, King of France, defender of the realm, chosen by God, imminent because he wanted to LARP as a knight and caught a spear, paycheck, with his eyeball. So the next time you feel embarrassed about tripping in public or sending a text to the wrong person, remember, lose your entire empire because you ran into a door, ate the wrong eel, or got jousted into oblivion. Congratulations, you've already done better than half the kings of medieval Europe. This has been History Facts Uncovered, where the past is dumb, blazing, the deaths are dumber, blastlines write themselves. See you in the next episode. Flammatory same time, same chaos, same how did humanity survive this long energy. Peasants.